Good morning to you, sir. Speaking of the media, you said this DC narrative that, conservative media just overshot the Durham story, they're exaggerating, is extremely dangerous because it refuses to address the fact that the GOP and Fox embrace propaganda 100%. So the fact that Durham had to come out and distance himself from the Durham report, right.
So, he's playing this game. I did a piece at Press Run saying he's kind of the new Ken Starr, too. I think he realized 6 months in, he had nothing. Bill Barr appointed him because Trump told him to go find someone to investigate Russia, the deep state Russiagate connection, how the FBI was after Trump. So Bill Barr hired Durham. And like I said, after 6 months, I think he looked around. He's like, well, I don't have anything. So like Ken Starr, rather than closing up shop and telling the Republican boss, I don't have anything, he's on this wild goose chase. He has one or two ridiculously small indictments about a single false charge that some guy said at lunch. Anyway, So he does these filings and he doesn't really have much. So he throws nuggets to the right-wing media with these vague conspiratorial nods. And this last one was just completely manufactured. The Clinton spying, Clinton campaign spied not only on Trump's campaign, but while he was president, because she's all powerful and can bend time and everything. So this is just completely manufactured, textbook example of propaganda. And so the press was slow to address it. And they're debunking, as you pointed out, well, Fox News is overreaching on the spy story. Trump is exaggerating on the spy story. That's really dangerous stuff. And we've talked about this forever. And they just do not want to call these people out for demagogues and liars because they don't want to really acknowledge what they're dealing with.
It's just, first of all, it wasn't spying and it wasn't during the Trump administration. So right there, first two tenets of journalism.
They infiltrated from top to bottom, complete fiction. And everyone who covers this story knows it's complete fiction. Everyone who did a fact check knows it's complete fiction. And the New York Times says that, the narrative, what did they say? The narrative went astray, and things like that. And it makes it sound like, well, they just kind of botched the story. But, now we'll explain it. And I'm sure they'll. We don't have a two-party system anymore. We have one party that deals with facts. We have one party in outer space. Well, and the Washington Post and the New York Times don't want to talk about when one party is floating around outer space at this point.
Yeah, and Eric, we talked about, they got caught in real time, Fox and Friends, nearly gleeful with what they thought were going to be bad jobs numbers. And then when the jobs numbers were fantastic, it's the way you said, looking for partisan outrage to promote plummet and the U.S. economy continues to soar. Fox News, Trump, and the ferocious right-wing noise machine have gone all in, claiming Hillary's campaign 6 years ago spied on the Republican candidate. And you just say the dreamt-up allegation comes courtesy of John Durham. But you're right. It's just like we've got to find something to distract because things are going well on X, Y, or Z, right? I mean, you said in the ABC News report, it wasn't until the 9th paragraph the network spelled out, nowhere in Durham's filing does he state that lawyers for Clinton paid a tech company to infiltrate servers belonging to Trump Tower. And you just said the crucial debunking should have been in the first paragraph. You said the New York Times dissected the phony spying claims, but its woefully soft headline claim right-wing narrative was merely off track. You said off track? It's a mountain of deliberate lies. Washington Post suggested Trump's claims were built on inaccurate Durham reporting, which makes the whole thing sound innocuous, like a clerical error of some sort, right?
Yeah, and the other, just in a general sense, I have no idea what this Clinton obsession is, with Fox News and with the spying. I mean, she's not running for office. I pointed out last week, this whole thing is a godsend for Biden. It takes him out of the headlines. They lose their mind over Hillary Clinton, who's not going, like I said, who isn't going to run. She's not going to be in the 2024 election. I don't know any party that has successful campaigns. I mean, they literally might have the 2024 campaign be about the 2016 campaign. I mean, most Americans want a party and a president who looks forward to the future. They are obsessed. First, Trump was obsessed with 2020. Now they're obsessed with 2016. Just in terms of the politics, I don't understand how this is good for them. But the press isn't really talking about that either.
And by the way, you quoted empty wheel, which is great on this. But you just said she wrote there's tons of instances where Durham demonstrably failed to
Oh,
do basic investigative work before
yep,
charging Sussman 5 years after a claimed lie. That's what
yeah,
this whole thing is
the
about.
whole thing.
Charging one guy with maybe lying to the FBI something 5 years ago.
And
Nothing to do with Hillary or spying or right
nothing.
any of it.
Nothing has to do with has nothing to do with FBI malfeasance. And that one entire ridiculous indictment hinges on a single witness who has contradicted himself. I
Right.
mean, the thing is beyond a joke. But as I point out in my piece, Durham is playing off these long-standing traditions in the Beltway media. So if you're a special prosecutor, that by definition means you're a serious, honest person. You must be taken seriously. Your motivations cannot be questioned because you have this elevated status as a special counsel. And so they learned nothing from Ken Starr. They treated him as a serious person, and they're treating John Durham as a serious person, even though, again, every reporter covering this knows he's out of his depths. He has nothing there. But if he announced some joke indictment tomorrow, it would be on the front page of the New York Times.
Yeah.
It would be treated as a very serious, grave situation. They don't take into account the fact that he's running this corrupt clown show.
Yeah. By the way, Brian Tyler Cohen tweeted, funny how Fox's reporting on the bombshell Hillary Clinton story came to an immediate end the moment she said they were approaching actual malice in their coverage. I mean, you went from Sean Hannity saying, bring it on, Hillary, and the lawsuits to they just stopped mentioning it because I'm sure, that's an actual legal term that they are showing malice. And,
It is. And, last time I checked, she went to Yale Law School. She knows what she's talking about. But isn't it incredibly frustrating? I mean, we bash the New York Times all the time, but last week, Sarah Palin had them in court. There was a week-long court case because the New York Times got a single sentence wrong in an editorial about Sarah Palin. I mean, the jury and the judge ruled in their favor. But my God, why is the New York Times being dragged into court for a week? And Fox News is just able to make this stuff up nonstop, completely smear Hillary Clinton, completely. It is malice. It's it's total libel.
Yeah.
And they get off scot-free. I mean, it's incredibly frustrating.
Yeah. And they're helpers like Greenwald. You said you reacted to a Glenn Greenwald tweet. You just said, meanwhile, not one word from Greenwald about Trump smuggling top secret documents out of the White House. Same Greenwald who wrote hysterically about Clinton emails for 2 years because misogyny is a hell of a drug. I mean,
hysterical is an understatement too. And honestly, why isn't that phrase being used by all the press? That Trump smuggled out top secret documents. That is unequivocally what happened. But you don't see that wording. Remember that first New York Times report on this? They said it was because of a hasty exit from the White House. Everyone was so busy with the insurrection. They didn't know what was going in the boxes. And, we might have taken some classified documents. No, they smuggled this stuff out of the White House. They knew it was against the law. These boxes sat in Mar-a-Lago for a year. This was not an innocent mistake. But boy, and it just goes back to the Hillary stuff. The entire point of that campaign was to depict her as a criminal, as a lawbreaker, as untrustworthy. Trump smuggles 15 boxes, and we had Washington Post reporters on TV saying, well, we're not sure if this is nefarious. We can't really tell if any rules were broken here.
And I was saying on MSNBC last night, Eric, that I don't know how else to say it, but this party has become so deeply un-American. And the press doesn't seem to know how to report on a party that just roots against America, roots for Putin, roots for Russia, roots for, not even truckers, but just the clogging of our supply chain, the shutting down of a bridge into America, the shutting down of American auto plants. But you're right. The media just does not report on how this is the patriotic party that waves the flags all the time, right?
Well, and we haven't talked. I mean, you just mentioned Putin and the Ukraine situation. I mean, it is astounding to watch. They are, we are on a brink of a European war, and the Republican Party is essentially rooting against America. And I mean, we don't have any troops involved, but obviously they want to see Biden fail. Obviously, if there's a summit with Putin, they want to see Biden fail. Obviously, they want to see carnage because they'll treat it as Afghanistan too. Again, even though there won't be U.S. troops involved. They want for the midterms, they want inflation to be high. They want They want there to be war. That's all they care about. They're seizing power.
And I have to say, I almost fell out of my chair because even Peggy Noonan and her Chardonnay Canaries on Meet the Press, like even they couldn't seem to find, like obviously pretty much everybody, every expert, even people here are saying Biden can't be handling this much better. I mean, so that's what I mean about it, like a network and a party that's just rooting for him to fail somehow. I was reading who was this? Ivan on Twitter said, whatever happens this weekend or next week in Ukraine, Biden has done a superb job forging a united opposition to Russia, intense diplomacy, unprecedented information sharing, leaving room for other nations to engage Putin, and a clear strategic communication all add up to Western unity. And I think, Putin so far has guessed wrong. He thought, Trump weakened NATO enough that he could do this, and I think he's finding out otherwise.
I mean, this has absolutely been a textbook case, and it's interesting. What is the press, when the press talks about Biden, he hasn't returned normalcy. He hasn't returned normalcy. This Ukraine, this foreign policy crisis, he absolutely has returned normalcy. He has the best and brightest people on this. They are smart. They are diligent. They are so far outmaneuvering Putin. They're masters so far on the world stage. There has been virtually no dissension. I mean, this is textbook foreign policy. Yeah. And this is a return to normalcy, but the press doesn't give Biden any credit for that.
Yeah.
I just, right before we went on, CNN has this piece. Biden-Putin summit could be a crisis for Biden.
Of course it
Come
will.
on.